Yeah, I guess that's definitely not what we usually picture when we think about bird calls and sounds. But the truth is that among the thousands of species of these fantastic creatures spread across our planet, there's a large number of them that stray far from what we expect and usually imagine when it comes to vocalizations, often producing quite unusual and different sounds, and ones that might even end up scaring some people who don't realize that, in fact, all that terrifying noise is simply coming from a bird. And with that in mind, we've put together a list featuring some of them to present in today's video. 20 birds with strange calls and sounds that will surprise you. Brown sicklebill. It's no wonder that so many cultures see birds of paradise as symbols of beauty and perfection. After all, some of them truly seem to defy the limits of nature, and the brown sicklebill is no exception, since with its black, white, and brown plumage with bluish metallic sheen and extremely long tail feathers, this bird manages to convey a truly enigmatic aura with every move it makes. In addition, these birds display a very complex and impressive behavior when it comes to courting females, and so during the breeding season, the male prepares a kind of display stage on a cleared branch of a tree in a strategic location, where he can perform movements and emit sounds in an effort to win over a partner. Well, I honestly don't know how the females find that attractive, but personally, if I heard a gunfire-like sound like that coming from the middle of the forest, I think my immediate reaction would be to run away instead of feeling in love. Gray go-away bird. The gray go-away bird is a species found in dry and wooded regions of eastern and southern Africa, such as savannas, woodlands, and sparsely vegetated areas, and it has an entirely gray appearance, without markings or bright colors, which allows it to easily blend in among branches and tree trunks. This bird, which is quite cautious, wary, and rarely stays visible for long, usually lives in small family groups and spends most of its time in medium-sized trees, where it moves nimbly by hopping from branch to branch instead of flying long distances. However, as soon as it feels threatened or wants to alert the group, its behavior changes completely, and the gray go-away bird lets out a loud, harsh, and sudden sound with a low and dry tone, sounding more like a scream than a song. This distinctive vocalization can be heard dozens of meters away and has a clear purpose: to allow the bird to communicate with others of its species, especially to defend territory, warn of danger, or establish social contact. So even if it sometimes ends up scaring some people, this is an essential skill that plays a key role in the survival of these animals. Southern cassowary. Imagine a bird that looks like it came straight out of a book about dinosaurs. Now add to that a bony crest on its head, powerful legs with sharp claws, and a piercing gaze that can intimidate even the bravest. Well, that's exactly the perfect description for the southern cassowary, one of the most enigmatic and dangerous birds on the planet. However, even with an appearance that commands respect, the southern cassowary usually lives hidden beneath the green canopy of tropical rainforests, where it prefers to walk alone while foraging for food, like insects, small mammals, mushrooms, and fruits, which makes it play a very important role as a seed disperser, since many seeds actually germinate better after passing through its digestive system. In addition, another peculiarity of this fascinating bird is related to its reproductive behavior. To begin with, birds of this species lay extremely large eggs that are quite different from most other birds' eggs, as they have a striking and beautiful green color. And unlike the majority of other birds, it is the male who incubates the eggs and takes care of the chicks, often choosing to avoid conflict. However, if he feels that his chicks are in danger, or that something or someone poses a threat to himself, let's just say he won't be too pleased, and might let out a sound like this. Yeah, this time I honestly don't even know what to say. I can only confirm that this one really scared me. Laughing kookaburra. Native to Australia and found in open forests, urban areas, and even residential gardens, the laughing kookaburra is a bird that belongs to the kingfisher family, although it doesn't have a strong relationship with water like other members of the group. This bird lives in pairs or small family groups and is naturally territorial, often perching in elevated spots like exposed branches or poles, from where it silently observes its surroundings before quickly swooping down to catch its prey. It has a compact body with brown and white feathers and a thick, flat beak adapted to catching small animals on the ground, such as insects, rodents, lizards, and even snakes. As for its vocalization, it can be described as similar to laughter, and it's truly a strange sound, especially when we consider the fact that it's coming from such a small bird. This distinctive call, which resembles loud, accelerating laughter, starts with a low tone and becomes increasingly high-pitched, almost like uncontrolled giggling, and is often heard in chorus when multiple individuals vocalize together, creating an unmistakable sound that can be heard over long distances, serving as a territorial marker and an alert signal for the group. Dusky grouse. I think it's no surprise to anyone that, in nature, some birds turn their mating displays into true spectacles, and the dusky grouse is definitely a bird that stands out in that regard. That's because when spring arrives, the males of this species transform forest clearings into real stages where they dance, puff out their chests, and emit sounds to try to attract females, who silently observe everything before choosing the most convincing partner. Thus, along with the fantail and choreographed steps, these animals then begin to produce sounds that come from air sacs located in their necks, which inflate like small balloons. Yeah, I'd say this is another case where I don't quite understand why the females would be attracted to that, but if it works for them, I guess the result can be considered a win. White bellbird. The white bellbird is another fascinating bird, notable for both its appearance and its distinctive vocalization. While the females have an olive-green color with fine stripes on their undersides, which makes them less visible against the forest foliage, the males are easily recognized by their white plumage and by a fleshy wattle that extends from the top of the beak, a remarkable trait of these birds that adds to the species' unique appearance. But beyond this unusual look, the white bellbird is also known for its extremely loud and piercing call, one of the loudest ever recorded among birds, often compared to an alarm or a musical instrument, and which can be heard from long distances. This species lives mainly in the humid Amazon rainforest and is often seen high up in the trees, feeding on fruits, which makes it an important species for seed dispersal and a contributor to forest regeneration. Northern lapwing. Spotting a northern lapwing in open fields is a common sight across many regions of Europe and Asia, where these birds are frequently visible, especially in pastures, wetlands, and cultivated plains, calmly moving around in search of insects and other small invertebrates. For most of the year, these birds live in relatively peaceful flocks, but everything changes during the breeding season as they become territorial and begin to perform acrobatic flights while emitting a very peculiar sound, which honestly reminds me a lot of one of those toys made for dogs. Great POTOO. Now let's talk about the great POTOO, a bird that stands out not only for its unique sound, but also for its strange appearance and eerie stare, which surely must startle many unsuspecting people who come across one of these creatures. Found across much of Central and South America, these fascinating animals possess an impressive camouflage ability, and, during the day, usually remain perched and completely still on dead tree trunks, typically with an upright posture and their beaks pointing upward, blending in so well that they often disappear entirely into their surroundings, so much so that you might literally be standing right next to one and not even realize it. Well, that is until it opens its enormous and haunting eyes, which are one of its most distinctive features and give it a truly unique and unmistakable look among birds. But if the great POTOO's strange appearance wasn't already enough to qualify it as a truly bizarre and eerie animal, it's also capable of producing a sound that I honestly won't even try to describe. You really just have to hear it to understand. Common loon. Present in lakes, rivers, and coastal zones of the northern hemisphere, the common loon is an aquatic bird, easily recognized by its elongated body, sharp beak, and striking coloration. These birds are excellent swimmers and divers, and they typically hunt fish and crustaceans underwater, being able to stay submerged for long periods before resurfacing several meters away. In addition, they are also known for being territorial birds, and often defend their space with loud and distinctive calls. And outside the breeding season, they usually remain isolated or in pairs, always close to large and deep bodies of water. However, during the nesting season, these birds become more vocal, and it is precisely during this period that the distinctive sound they produce can be heard more frequently. This long, melancholic, and penetrating call of the common loon is often described as something between a distant howl and a moaning echo over the water, and it serves both for communication between mates and for marking territory, especially at dawn and dusk. Channel-billed cuckoo. With its long, curved, and imposing bill, the channel-billed cuckoo can be found mainly in Australia, New Guinea, and nearby islands, and it draws attention not only for its size but also for its appearance, which somewhat resembles that of a toucan. But beyond that, another peculiarity of the channel-billed cuckoo lies in the way it interacts with other birds in its environment, considering that, like other cuckoos, this species also practices brood parasitism, meaning that instead of building its own nest, the female lays her eggs in the nests of other birds, leaving them to handle the incubation and feeding of the chicks. To conclude, if its unique appearance and opportunistic behavior weren't already enough, the channel-billed cuckoo also stands out for the distinctive, shrill, and repetitive sound it can emit, which can be easily heard from great distances. Atlantic puffin. With expressive eyes, a compact body, and a colorful beak, the Atlantic puffin is one of the most charismatic seabirds of the northern hemisphere. It lives in coastal regions of the North Atlantic, especially on Arctic islands, in Iceland, the United Kingdom, and Canada, where it forms colonies with hundreds or even thousands of individuals during the breeding season. In addition to being able to fly swiftly, these animals are also excellent divers, and their diet is composed mainly of fish and other aquatic animals, which means they spend most of the year out at sea, far from the coast, with their presence on land being limited to just a few months each year when they return to dig burrows and nest. And it's during this short period that these birds become more vocal, especially when interacting within the dense colonies where they compete for space and mates, and thus their deep and muffled vocalization, almost like a murmur or growl, can be heard coming from inside the burrows or among the crowded gatherings of the colony. American bittern. The American bittern is a discrete bird that inhabits swamps and wetlands in North America and has a brownish plumage with vertical stripes and spots, ideal for blending perfectly into the reeds and dense vegetation of these places, making it extremely difficult to spot. Additionally, when they feel threatened, these animals tend to remain still, stretching their necks and pointing their beaks upward, imitating the surrounding stems, a behavior that helps them go unnoticed by predators, even when just a few meters away. However, despite its shy appearance, this bird's vocalization is far from subtle, and during the mating season, the male emits a deep, rhythmic, and pulsing sound with a resonant sequence that spreads unexpectedly through the silence of the wetland vegetation. Black-footed albatross. The black-footed albatross is an impressive seabird, known for crossing vast stretches of the Pacific Ocean while hardly ever touching land. With long, narrow wings that can exceed 2 meters in wingspan, this bird spends most of its life flying over the sea, taking advantage of wind currents to glide for hours without flapping its wings. However, despite living far from shore, the black-footed albatross returns to islands to breed, usually in colonies, and it is exactly in these places that its elegant appearance and synchronized movements contrast with the curious and distinctive sound that they produce, typically during mate selection or disputes with other individuals of their species. Capuchin-bird. Little known outside its natural habitat, the capuchin-bird lives in the tropical forests of northern South America and stands out for its unusual appearance, with a robust body, reddish-brown plumage, and a head almost completely devoid of feathers, features that intrigue and captivate many birdwatchers from the very first encounter. But if its peculiar look weren't enough to draw attention, the capuchin-bird also emits an astonishing vocalization, something between a muffled moo and a hoarse roar, which echoes through the forest with a vibrant tone, serving both to mark territory and attract mates. Jack snipe. Small, agile, and extremely discreet, the jack snipe is a migratory bird that inhabits wet areas in temperate regions of Europe and Asia. Just like the American bittern we already showed, it also has plumage with earthy, streaked tones that blend easily into the vegetation, making it hard to spot, even for experienced birdwatchers. However, despite its reserved behavior, this species has a habit of, let's say, performing a kind of dance that honestly reminded me a lot of myself when I'm working while listening to music. But in truth, far beyond looking like a TikTok video creator, this behavior serves to create subtle vibrations in the ground that help the bird detect underground prey, such as insects, worms, and larvae, by provoking their movement or reaction. To top it all off, if its amazing camouflage skills and dancing talent weren't already enough, the jack snipe is also capable of producing a sound that I honestly find very hard to describe, so I think the best option is simply to listen to it and understand. Willow ptarmigan. Found in the cold, open regions of northern Europe, Asia, and North America, the willow ptarmigan is a bird specialized in extreme environments, inhabiting tundras, steppes, boreal forests, and mountainous areas where cold, wind, and a lack of shelter are part of daily life. One of its main adaptations for surviving in these conditions is its seasonal plumage change. In summer, it displays brown, mottled tones that help it blend in among rocks and low shrubs, while in winter, these birds turn completely white, nearly disappearing into the snow. The willow ptarmigan spends most of its time on the ground, feeding on buds, leaves, berries, and small invertebrates. During breeding season, males climb small hills or rocks and become much more active, vocalizing repeatedly in a way that completely breaks the surrounding silence. Really strange, right? This short, rough, and surprisingly deep vocalization from the willow ptarmigan, with a tone that resembles a muffled cough or a dry grunt, is a call made with strength and conviction. And just like most of the other cases we've seen so far, it serves to mark territory and attract mates. Western capercaillie. Found in boreal and mountainous forests of Europe and Asia, the western capercaillie is one of the largest galliform birds in the world, living in cold, densely wooded areas where it prefers habitats with pines, spruces, and thick vegetation. Males are large-bodied, with dark plumage, a broad fan-shaped tail, and a characteristic feather beard under the beak, while females, on the other hand, are smaller and have mottled brown plumage, ideal for camouflage. The western capercaillie feeds on leaves, fruits, and buds, and for most of the year, it can be described as a calm bird, moving discreetly along the forest floor. However, However, when the mating season arrives, its behavior changes dramatically, and males then occupy open areas within the woods and begin a series of highly ritualized displays that involve upright posture, firm movements, and very peculiar vocalizations. Three-wattled bellbird. And if you happen to think that the white bellbird looked rather strange due to the fleshy wattle hanging from its beak, you'll probably be even more surprised by the three-wattled bellbird, which has not just one, but 3 of these fleshy appendages. Native to the mountainous regions of Central America, this species, like the white bellbird, stands out not only for its unique appearance, but also for its bizarre and unmistakable vocalization, which ranks among the strangest and most distinctive of all birds. While the females have a more discreet look, with olive-green plumage that helps them stay camouflaged in the forest environment, the males display white plumage on the head and throat, with the rest of the body being a shade of brown, and are particularly striking for the presence of 3 long black, fleshy wattles hanging from the base of their beak, which are used in courtship displays. CORY'S shearwater. Much like the black-footed albatross we showed earlier, the CORY'S shearwater is another seabird that spends most of its life far out at sea, crossing the Atlantic Ocean with remarkable skill. With its long wings, slender body, and coloration in shades of gray, white, and brown, it typically soars across great distances effortlessly, taking advantage of air currents over the waves, and during the breeding season, it returns to oceanic islands to form colonies and nest in rocky crevices or burrows in the ground. And it is precisely in this setting that the CORY'S shearwater reveals a striking vocal behavior, as generally at night, when the colonies are most active, it emits an intense and truly bizarre sound that echoes across cliffs and caves, creating an almost ghostly atmosphere, especially for those who don't realize that this sound is actually coming from a bird. Shoebill. Well, we have to admit that up until now, we've talked about birds capable of producing some really strange and unusual sounds, including ones that sound like terrifying laughter, and even cassowaries that seem to be coughing as if they've choked on something. But now it's time to talk about a bird that, unbelievably, manages to produce a sound even stranger and scarier than all the other cases we've seen so far. We're talking about the shoebill, an impressive bird found in the swamps and wetlands of Central Africa, especially in countries like South Sudan, Uganda, and Zambia, with such a distinctive and striking appearance that it seems like it came straight out of another time. This incredible bird is quite solitary, and it usually walks slowly through the flooded vegetation and positions itself at the water's edge in complete silence, hunting in a patient and methodical way, often observing and staying completely still for several minutes before striking at fish, frogs, and even small crocodiles with precision. However, all this discreet and quiet behavior from the shoebill is completely set aside when it decides to demonstrate the powerful and frightening sound it's capable of producing. That's right. As if its bizarre appearance weren't enough, the shoebill can also make a sound very similar to rifle fire, produced by rapidly clapping its beak shut, and this sound is used during displays and territorial interactions. And what about you? Which bird had the most surprising and fantastic sound on this list? Let us know in the comments which one impressed you the most, and if you enjoyed the video, make sure to subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any of the content we bring here. Well, that's it for today. Thanks for watching, and see you next time.